to jump into some questions here that you guys have written in. Let's start with, what's the best way to teach sight words to a struggling reader? She is 7. And
Right.
thanks.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, I have a lot to say about reading programs, and it's a little bit difficult to answer this question. You can learn a lot about teaching sight words if you go to Skills. We have a whole program on this in the Skills website. So you would go to www.skillsforautism.com. There you go. Thank you, Shannon.
There we go. I was trying to get it in the shot. Skills made this for me because I could never remember all of the information, and we refer to it a lot because it's a great thing.
Yes.
So 877-975-4559 is the phone number that you can call, or as Dr. Granpeesheh was saying, Skills for FOR autism.com.
And I think Skills with the number 4 autism, it works as well. But so just get on Skills. There is a section for reading under the academic curriculum, and that will guide you. There's a lot of different things you can do with sight reading. There's many really good reading programs out there which are separate from, a more comprehensive ABA program. But at 7, I think it's pretty important to figure out what you're doing. Because you're looking at reading, and this is a purely academic skill, you really should get your school district involved. This is an issue where you need an IEP, and you need to have them produce goals for you. You can certainly use Skills to pull out goals, and Skills is often very useful for that. But it is important to get your IEP in place because your school should be supporting you in teaching this skill.
Absolutely. And I have to say, because I'm a big Pinterest fan, that if you go on Pinterest, there are all kinds of creative things for teachers that parents can use too. My favorite one for sight words, it's crazy. And I just was thinking about this the other, because we got something in the mail and it came with a whole bunch of bubble wrap. And bubble wrap is about to be gone forever. But my son had such a good time popping. He was like, "Can I pop the bubbles?" And there is a whole thing on Pinterest about taking sight words and writing them on the bubbles, and they only get to pop it if they can
read it.
Clever.
Very clever.
Pinterest. It's really good for things like that. We have a Pinterest page for Autism-Live too. You can go and check out. I put things on it all the time that I think are just way clever.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I love Pinterest. Pinterest is amazing.
Isn't it so much fun? We cut it out of the interview that we did with Temple Grandin in the car. It started with me talking about Pinterest, about her, and me saying that I can lose 2 hours on Pinterest like that, as if I've been taken away by wolves and I don't know where I've been. And then, but Kelby fortunately cut that part out. But we start the interview with me saying to her, "What do you do that you can get lost for 2 hours?" Because I was talking about Pinterest. Anyway, all right, moving on. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. I need help with my 5.6-year-old son. He won't sleep in his bed any night. His bed is in my room because there's only one bedroom in my apartment. He falls asleep in his bed, but every night climbs into mine. I take him back and stay a few minutes with him in his bed because he says he's scared. If I leave his bed before he falls asleep, he'll start saying, "Can I come into your bed?" and whining. There's a little night light in the room, but he's still scared. He'll start saying things like, "What's that over there?" Any shadow in the room, he'll ask, "What is that?" and sounds, and looks really scared. I feel really bad for him since he's little. I know he's afraid of the dark. That's why I have a nightlight in the room. Does not matter how many times at night I take him back to his bed, he still comes back. And in the morning, we're both really tired. Please help me. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's so tough. I can understand that. So I think what you do, and you're in a unique situation in that your son, you have one bedroom and your son needs to stay in your room. So it actually in some ways will make things a little bit easier. What you'll do to begin this is that you'll move his bed right next to your bed, okay, so that it's directly touching your bed. And that's it. And then you'll sleep that way, and he'll sleep, and you'll both be fine. And he will be in his bed. If he starts to roll over you, then just tuck him in so that like the blanket on your side is closed so that he's in his bed. Put your hand over him and let him sleep. And then very, very gradually over the course of the next, let's say, month, you will inch his bed away from you. So you'll like open it up a tiny bit, that 1 inch, and then leave it that way for a week, and then go maybe 2 inches and leave it that way for 2 weeks, and then open it 3 inches and leave it. So you do very slowly over the course of a month or 2 months or 3 months, however long it takes, to the point where his bed has now moved to the other side of the room. So that's the shaping procedure that you do. Now, in terms of the nightlight, the problem with nightlights is that there's several problems. One is that we don't sleep well when there's lights on. You need total darkness in order for melatonin to be produced in your body. So total darkness is better physiologically for sleep. Second thing is that night lights are actually the reason we see shadows. If you had full light or no light, you wouldn't see shadows, but night lights, you see shadows, and that is what tends to be scary. On the other hand, conversation about these things is very attention-seeking or attention-giving, so you don't really want to be conversing. I know you want to give him comfort, but now you're giving him comfort physically. He's on you, so he's next to you, and you have your hand on him. So please don't converse when he says, "What's that? What's this?" Just pat him and just calm him down that way, and don't have a communication about it. He'll stop. If you don't converse about it, it'll first get more and then it'll decrease. And that's the way to do it. You just pat him like that, and then he'll stop talking about it, and then you will gradually fade him away. Ideally, try to see if you can eliminate the nightlight. What I would do is I'd probably go out there and buy a bunch of different nightlights that start with high light and go down to the ones that are very, very low. Mm-hmm. And then I would put it on the far end of the room, and I would basically try to fade it out, because darkness actually allows us to sleep a lot better.
Love it. I happen to love the Uncle Milton toys. They have a
I love that. The moon thing.
Moon one
I love
is
that.
great. They have a whole series of night lights that come with remotes, so that you can turn them off from bed.
That's fantastic.
And they come in different characters, but Jem still has it on the wall. We don't use it anymore, but it still is on the wall. The moon one.
So does Sunny.
Really?
Yeah.
My sister wanted one.
He hasn't
for
turned it on.
Christmas.
He hasn't turned it on for years.
But
I just saw it there the other day, and I was like, I remember that thing.
Right? And it comes with a lot of informational stuff. But what I love about it is it's got the remote, and every time you click it, it shows you a different phase of the moon.
Right.
So you can get it. I don't know what the actual names for it, but we call it the fingernail moon. You can start with a full moon and get it down to the
something like phases of the moon or something like that.
Yeah, and there's like the full gibbous and the
it's very good.
Gibbous.
It's really good. Yeah.
But great thing, and it's decorative.
It's a National Geographic toy.
But the manufacturer that makes it though is Uncle Milton, because we've had them on the show.
Okay, there you go.
And you can get them at I think at Target and
everywhere.
At Walmart, and it's not that expensive. It's not more than $20.
Yep.
But the remote is my favorite part about it, because we could read and have the night light on,
and that helps a lot.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, very cool. All right, we've had a lot of questions about 504s lately. Mm-hmm. My elementary school child just got diagnosed with ADHD. How soon does a school take action when they get a 504 document in hand? I'm a concerned mom because the teacher is not on the same page as we are. What's my next step? Thank you. Cannot get enough of your advice.
That's nice. Thank you very much. Well, the answer is right away, immediately. So once there's a 504 document in place, they need to implement it. So you need to call an emergency IEP. That's what I would do. Is I would call an emergency IEP, and I would say, hey, you guys are not implementing the 504 document. So, hopefully it won't get contentious. But if it does, obviously you can have parent advocacy help you. I know that there are a lot of, depending on where you are, FEET groups usually have someone who's a parent advocate who can help. I was going to say California Regional Centers usually would have, but they're going extinct soon. So usually I feel that the only other people who help us when it comes to IEPs are parents. So I would suggest you really get involved with a parent group if you need help.
Yeah.
Of course, special education lawyers will help you as well, but hopefully it won't get that bad.
Absolutely. And you can request a lot of times that they won't have the teacher there when you call a meeting. You can request that the teacher is there, and I would encourage you to start documenting everything. Work hard to see if you can get the teacher on the same page with you, but document everything.
So I mean, it's not like the IEP itself where there's like a phase of like you have to be able to, from the time you request, they have something like 20 days to respond and so on and so forth. Once the 504 document is there, everybody has to implement it. And very often, nobody's really even aware of it.
Right, absolutely. Okay, what can you do when an autistic child is having a meltdown? Can you tell when a child is going to have a meltdown? And if so, how can it be prevented? They went on to add that their child is currently getting B12 injections every other day, and there is definitely a difference when they skip a few days versus the days that she gets the shot and after.
Right. So there's a lot of things you can do when a child's having a meltdown, and we can talk about that in a minute, but I think it's important for our viewers to kind of take a step back and look at autism and what we know about autism. There is no magic injection or pill that will all of a sudden take away the symptoms of autism and make things all better. It just doesn't exist. Now, methyl B12 shots can help if the child is a low methylator and needs help with methylation, which obviously is the way that we detoxify. So that is always an important thing because our kids become very highly toxic and then they're kind of out of it. And with methyl B12, they're almost awake and detoxifying like we are. So that's an important thing, and it also probably gives them some energy too, so they can attend better. But it's not going to stop the behaviors, the challenging behaviors, and the other symptoms of autism. With meltdowns, what you cannot look and think, oh, there's a pill that I can give my child, because if there was, which there is, there are things like Risperdal, what you're doing is you're not dealing with the main cause and the issue. You're just suppressing a behavior. You're just kind of turning the child into more of like someone who's sedated so that they don't act out. And that's not what you want, because this is the very, very important thing about meltdowns. A meltdown is communication. Any kind of challenging behavior is communication. It's the child trying to tell you something. In fact, if you think about it, first of all, challenging behaviors are not a symptom of autism, and I keep saying this. They're just a side effect of not being able to communicate. And this is true of pretty much anyone, not just kids with autism. Any child or any adult who has a meltdown, typically developing people, it's because they haven't been able to communicate themselves, and they haven't been able to kind of understand what their sensitivities are. Why is this bothering me so much? How could I better communicate this? And when you think about these things and figure them out with yourself, and you're able to actually communicate it with someone, you feel a lot better, and then there's no meltdown. Now, this is exactly what happens with our kids too. So there's different scenarios. For instance, someone might come and tell the child, I need you, I want you to stand in line and do this work, and then after this work, you have to do that work, and so on. And the child just doesn't want to do it. So they have a meltdown, and they learn, oh, every time I have a meltdown, people will leave me alone. So they learn the meltdown is effective. Having a tantrum becomes good communication for them, because every time they want something or want to avoid something, it's an effective way of telling people, leave me alone, I don't want to do this. Or another example would be when you see a child like trying to get a toy from another child, and they'll hit the other child, and they'll grab the toy, and they'll win. They will succeed in taking the toy away. So hitting other people becomes a behavior that's effective. Or a child will throw a tantrum, and the teacher will remove the child from the classroom. And the child internally, without even being aware of it, quite subconsciously, learns, wow, this is pretty cool. Every time I have a tantrum, I can leave school. So this is an effective thing. If you think about it, the only reason typically developing kids don't do the same thing, there's two maintaining factors with typically developing kids that our kids don't experience. One is embarrassment in front of their peers. they're not aware of how the peers are looking at them or perceiving them, because they lack this perspective taking ability. So what happens as a result is they actually couldn't care less. So they'll throw a tantrum and get kicked out of class, and they're not embarrassed by it because of other people looking at it. Typically, developing kids are embarrassed, so they won't do that. In fact, typically developing kids are so embarrassed just to be present, they'd like to be invisible if possible. The other factor is that we care a lot about what our parents think because we want to please our parents. It's reinforcing for us to have a parent say, good job, you did a great thing. With our kids, it's not so reinforcing. They're not aware of what behaviors parents want them to do and what behaviors parents don't want them to do. They're of equal value, negative and positive attention. So a lot of times our kids are not like motivated to be the good kid in class. They'll just throw the tantrum, get kicked out, and they don't realize it has a negative effect on the parent. So what I'm basically trying to say is it's very important that you realize that having a meltdown is a form of communication. Now, what is the child trying to communicate? I always say there's two things we're trying to communicate. I want something or I want to avoid something. That's it. So figure out in each instance it could be a different thing. So next time your child has a meltdown, just sit there and think about what is he trying to get or avoid. It's usually the child's trying to get a tangible object, something, or they're trying to get attention, okay? Usually what they're trying to avoid is giving up something they like or a situation they're in that they would rather not be in, like a class. So write those down. Figure out for each time the child has a tantrum, figure out what the function is. This is what I'm talking about, is the function. Once you've identified the function, then we can intervene. Now, the interventions differ based on the function. So let's say a child has a meltdown because they want to avoid being in the classroom. Well, you don't allow them to get out of the classroom when they have a meltdown. You keep them in the classroom. Why? Because it gives the child the message that having a meltdown is not effective in getting you out of the classroom. It is no longer an effective form of communication. From now on, if you want to get out of the classroom, you have to ask for a break, either verbally or non-verbally through an icon. You just have to ask for a break. Or let's say a child wants to hit their sibling to grab a toy. You have to stop that and not allow the child to win, to get the toy. So essentially what you do is you're making the communication of the tantrum ineffective. You're making sure that it does not succeed. Once you've done that, then you teach the child a different, more appropriate, more adaptive way of making their needs known. And once they're able to communicate in a more adaptive way, and the non-adaptive way, the meltdown, is not effective, then they will use the more adaptive way. It's really that simple. After half an hour, it's really that simple.
That simple. But you know, when you get it, it is amazing. I love the mom who said, now when my child does something that I don't want them to do, I have to think to myself, what is it that they want? What is it that they want? And when they're doing something I don't want them to do, when I know what they want, give them the exact opposite. So if they wanted attention, I'm going to give them no attention. If they wanted to get out of it, I'm going to make them do it.
Right.
That's a really simple thing.
Unless they ask for it in a nice way.
Right. If they're doing it inappropriately. Right. So
exactly. Do the opposite.
And once you do that, but that's when they're doing something you don't want them to do. When they're doing something you do want them to do, then we just praise.
Absolutely.
And reinforce, because praise is not always reinforcing, but we always want to pair it with whatever.
And it's a little bit more. It's kind of also like questioning why you don't want them to do something. Like sometimes we don't want our kids to do something because we're embarrassed or because we think it's not good, but there's no real rule about whether it is good or not. I mean, I always question things, like, you know, we maintain a certain type of relationship with our kids, and I always wonder if that's the right way to be. There's no rules around how you are with your kids. Everybody's different.
But I think that one of the hallmarks of the CARD program, and whenever I meet people all the time and go, oh, I don't like ABA because they're training little robots,
Right,
and
right.
and then they're forcing kids to not be themselves and be
Right.
like us, and that's just wrong. And I'm always extra grateful for CARD because I think the difference in CARD is that you meet the kids where they are, and you, with the family, make judgments about, we had somebody on the show recently who said, what's wrong with this? Why can't someone do this? Really, what's wrong with it?
Right.
And my answer to that was, there are times of the day when there's nothing wrong with this, but if this is all the child can do, then this becomes impossible.
Exactly.
And we want the
Exactly.
child to be able to write and communicate and whatever,
Absolutely.
but once they are able to do this, if there's a part of the day when this makes them feel better, woohoo!
Who cares? Do it on your own. The other side of it is also, I think, so here's the other thing or a different way of saying, like, what's wrong with it. What's wrong with it is that when you're doing this, even if it's not interfering with this, it's interfering with anything else you could learn. Because when our kids get into that mode of self-stimulatory behavior, they're really not paying attention to anything outside of themselves. And this is kind of a commonality they have with kids with ADHD. Kids with attention deficit, it's not like they don't attend to certain things. In fact, they attend to certain things in a very, very extreme way, which is sort of their own things of interest. And that's all they attend to, and that's why they have attention deficit to other things. And it's really important for our kids to, like, in general, for any human being, I think the lesson is just to be more aware. And the more aware you are of all the stimuli around you, the more successful you are. There's no question about that, because you learn to read and see cues that are subtle. And they could be cues about human beings, or cues about the weather, or cues about an accident that's about to happen, whatever it is. The more observant you are, the better you do.
Yeah. But going back to my point that CARD, you embrace the kids where they are, as they are, and who they are. And so what you see are the kids who graduate from CARD are these creative, polite, caring,
very sweet, lovely people.
very much themselves. They're
Right.
individuals.
Right.
They have their interests that they're really good at.
Right.
But they're capable of holding a conversation about other things than just their interests. They're well-rounded. They're the people I think we all would like to be, and they're happy kids.
Yeah, and they're nice kids. They're like nice human beings, because they never really. They just, they don't become competitive. They don't become mean. They don't try to quash someone else in order to be better.
Right.
They don't have big egos. None of that exists in autism, and that's one of the things I love about autism.
Yeah. But I don't think that that's necessarily the case every place else.
Yeah,
I think
that's interesting.
Very specific to CARD.
I don't know. I think it's very specific to the nature of autism in some ways, Shannon, because, like, the nature of autism, if you don't, like, we talk about all the bad things, right, that comes about from not being able to take someone else's perspective. The truth is, a ton of good stuff comes about it as well. Like, if you're not able to take someone else's perspective, you're not embarrassed, which has downsides, but it also has upsides.
Yes.
So you're just a much more social being in some ways, and you're not going to be all, like, offended or shy or try to look good all the time, or none of that exists. They don't care. The kids are just themselves.
Yes.
And there's like really cool stuff that comes out of autism as well.
I remember the first time in kindergarten that Jem stood up and they were talking about, the teacher was saying that there was a holiday coming up, and she said, so if you want to wear your holiday costume, you can. And there was something, Jem still, words are very specific to him, and he stood up and said, oh, I can wear my holiday dress. He didn't say costume, he said holiday dress. And all the kids giggled because he's a little boy and he was talking about a dress. And he turned and he looked at everybody and he said, are you laughing with me or at me?
Fantastic.
In kindergarten, right? And the teacher,
God,
and I
love
happened
that.
to be there volunteering that day, and the teacher and I looked at each other, and And afterwards, I cried.
Yeah.
And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "It was such an amazing moment. It's him noticing what's going on. But now we need to work on him understanding people are going to think those things, and it's okay to not care."
Okay. Or Shannon, like here's one of the things I love about that. This is the other side of it that I see, right?
Okay.
Is like what a fantastic world it would be if everyone actually was that direct.
Yeah.
That frank. Like what he did was what I now do. I've gone full cycle from like ignoring people who might laugh at me to just not caring about it or trying not to care about it or caring more about the people who are with me or whatever it is, right? And learning that you don't have to be embarrassed, you just be blah blah blah, all that whole thing. And then with many years later, with wisdom that we learn from life, I've come to the conclusion that when something like that happens, I need to just say, "Hey, you guys, are you laughing with me or at me?"
Yeah.
Because it's an education for them.
Yeah.
It's an awakening for them to think, by the way, you just did something mean.
Yes.
Like, and that's what I love about it is that, his pureness just came out.
Yeah.
And he said, "Are you laughing with me or at me?"
Yeah.
And that's beautiful in
Yes.
so many ways. And that's what I love about autism is that the complications are not there.
Yeah.
They're just not, and you
Yes.
can get through the psyche so much faster. It's amazing.
It is an amazing thing. How can I help my 7-year-old stop picking his nose? When I volunteer in his class, I see this. I quietly ask him to get a tissue, and he gets angry at me and continues to pick. I don't want the other kids to tease him, and thank you for your suggestions.
Yeah. So I would, it's a little bit hard to block that behavior by each time it occurs because it could be very frequent and it does get a lot of attention. So what I would do instead is I would reinforce an incompatible behavior. So I would probably, for instance, one thing you could do is, yeah, this is great. So go to any store like Target or something and buy a bunch of things that are like flats, like things that he could have a pile of things and they've put a price tag on it. Because picking those price tags off is the biggest nightmare of the universe. I don't know if you guys have experienced like trying to take a price tag off something that's stuck on. It's like, oh my Lord, and it comes into pieces and so on and so forth. And I think like keeping his hands occupied with something that's right in front of him, and it could be anything. It could be something that's benign to the school situation. So, a card with a few stickers on it, where he does that every time he has the urge to actually pick his nose, because it's a very similar kind of behavior, picking at a piece of paper. And it'll be a small thing, and then you gradually can reduce the size of it, and just make sure that it's not easy to take off. And the price tags are very good because they're made to come apart.
Right.
So that people can't steal. So they're cut, so they have little cuts. So price tags are a great thing because he'll have to do little bits of it, little pieces of it.
Okay.
That would be an easy way to get rid of it. It's a habit. Once you break the habit. And also pay attention. A lot of times our kids start to do those things if they have allergies. Perhaps he has a dry nose. Like try to look into why he has developed that behavior to begin with. If he has allergies, you're going to want to make sure he uses a spray that moisturizes the nasal cavities and or maybe his lips as well, and so that he's comfortable. So later on, when this is finished, he doesn't have a sensation of having to go back to his nose.
Great.
Yeah, and you can also, you can fade this activity to something that's in his pocket and he's just like picking at the price tag or something in his pocket. You can gradually fade it away.
Great. And we never used a nasal spray before, but we just, I was sick and my son, I had pneumonia, my son had bronchitis, we found one at Sprouts that was water, grapefruit seed extract, which is very good for things,
awesome.
and xylitol, which is supposed to be good for things. So nothing horrible in there at Sprouts. So free plug for Sprouts. Okay, I have a 3-year-old that has pervasive developmental disorder, which is autism. Lately, he is really kicking, hitting, throwing, etc. It's when he's overexcited and happy, not out of anger. He seeks touch. How can I calm him when he gets so excited he has a hard time calming himself?
Okay. So PDD, pervasive developmental disorder, doesn't exist anymore. It's part of the ASD diagnosis now. It's part of the spectrum of autism spectrum disorders, ASD. And if you had PDD in the past, then you'd probably be classified as a 1-1 in the ASD spectrum right now, which means you have mild deficits in both social communication and in repetitive behaviors. Perhaps he has, it's a 1-2 or 2-1. It could be a slightly higher severity level, but he's mildly affected with autism. And he kicks and so on and so forth when he's excited, which basically means that he has difficulty with regulating his own senses. When you get excited, you are producing a lot of neurotransmitters, which are elation, which cause various types of emotions like elation and so on and so forth. And so whether it's serotonin or dopamine that he's producing in those moments, he doesn't know how to downregulate. His body doesn't downregulate those things. So, and normally we do. So a lot of things that we do help us downregulate the neurotransmitters. So, it would be important to try to teach him techniques that would help him. But first, did the parents say the age of the child?
3.
3. So he's very young. So at this point, what you do is when he gets excited and he starts doing that sort of thing, you grab him and you just hold him really tight. So this is kind of like a bear hug. Like, you may want to massage his arms and legs or whatever it is, but you will hold him until he calms down. It's funny because these are the original premise of holding therapy, which was a lot of this. But having said that, what you're really doing is you're just kind of helping him to calm until his neurotransmitter burst is over. Over time, what you're going to look for is ways that he can take that over himself and downregulate. So, in the old days, we used to have these weighted vests. Weighted vests often help our kids downregulate. One of the things that would really help with your child is to have an area in his room and in various rooms, which is his calming area. So if he starts to feel that he's getting hyper and like all excited or something, you would send him to the area. You would actually say, go to your calm space. It could be like a little house in the corner of the room. It could be just a bean bag. Bean bags actually are very calming themselves. Biggest calming experience is rocking. When you rock back and forth like this, which not that I'm telling you to teach your child how to rock, but if there's a rocking chair that your child could sit in, by rocking you activate the parasympathetic system in your body, and once the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, you calm. That's why we rock babies. But so if you can teach him things that would activate the parasympathetic nervous system, it will downregulate. Rocking is the primary thing that will help. But also, I think a lot of our kids who are hyperstimulated like this and just need to learn to calm down, breathing exercises help them. He's a little bit young for that at 3. At 3, you'll be doing a lot of the calming for him. You'll be helping him. You can also use bodysuits, the bodysuits that the kids climb into, and they're pretty tight, and it keeps them in one like contained space. That sensory all over his skin sensation will tend to calm him down. I don't.
Are those dry brushes?
Dry brushes might hyperactivate.
Okay.
It's got to be more something that is very enclosing, like kind of like roll him up in a blanket.
Yeah, the burrito.
Exactly, the burrito. The things, it's very interesting. We're just writing an article on sensory inputs with autism. It's a very big factor. And there are specific activities that help downregulate versus activities that stimulate. And you should consult with a local OT who is trained in sensory integration. This is probably very important for you to do and you're going to be asking for activities that help downregulate. I just know some because I've learned some from OTs, but I'm pretty sure OTs can give you a few more.
We have a great OT that's a semi-regular on the show that she has 2 sons on the autism spectrum as well, so she's an autism mom and she gets it. Her name is Kara Kaczynski. They call her the Pocket OT. She has a series of books that are great. She has a new book that's about to come out on weighted
That's
blankets.
fabulous. Yeah.
In fact, I just did the review for it. My quote about it will be on the back cover of her book. And I think you find it really interesting.
Yeah,
'Cause
weighted
a lot of
blankets
things-
are awesome.
I'm going to make one as soon as Autism Awareness Month is over. I have plans to make a weighted blanket because because of this book.
It's interesting, Shannon. I have to say that although it's pretty expensive, but there's also a lady that produces these. She doesn't produce them for the purposes of weighted blankets, but she produces them with silver, actual silver, because what they do is they don't allow electromagnetic fields to enter the body, right?
Wow.
And they're extremely heavy
Yeah.
because of the fact that it's built with silver. They're knitted into it.
Wow.
And so that's kind of an interesting concept as well.
Okay, I'll have to look more into that.
Yeah.
But very interesting. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question. We've got 2 questions about potty training. That one that's 4 and one that's 14. I'm going to start with the 14-year-old because it just came in. We're trying hard to potty train my 14-year-old nonverbal daughter. She gets very aggressive when we ask her to sit on the toilet. I don't want her to think that she can get out of it by hitting and knocking things over. I give her choices of books to take with her and play her music, which is her favorite, when she sits. Sometimes getting her to the bathroom is a nightmare. She has a PEX board that she doesn't use consistently. She gets reinforced when she eliminates. Thanks for your wonderful advice. I feel like I'm doing it all wrong. And she made a sad face. We're sending you air hugs.
Yes, we are. And don't ever feel like you're doing it all wrong. The fact that you're doing something makes it all right. So that's all that matters, is that you're attempting things. Now, first of all, if I was personally going to potty train a 14-year-old, I would ask for help. So you need to have a therapist and someone who's board certified. Because potty training a 14-year-old nonverbal child is not easy. So what I want to start with here is you're reinforcing her for voiding in the potty, and that's great. But what you need to do is establish a desire for her to even go to the bathroom. That's where you're stuck. So those reinforcers that you mentioned, which is the music and books, don't allow her to have them during the day. They will then gain value. They will become highly valuable. And then you will be able to really get her to go sit down. I promise you. The hard part is not giving her those items the rest of the day. So you don't have to do it with both. She can have books the rest of the day. But music, which might be her most powerful, should only happen if she's sitting on the toilet. And then, of course, that will help her sit on the toilet for a longer period of time, and then she will have more successes. There is a specific procedure that I use. I always use the Fox and Azrin procedure. People have made tons of modifications to this. It is available online. It's available in a lot of different books. But I do suggest that you use a BCBA and you follow a specific shaping procedure for potty training. It's not something you can do on your own, especially when the child's 14. And again, the biggest issue I think for you is to make sure you have a powerful reinforcer that she cannot access the rest of the time.
Okay, there's so many questions to choose from. I'm going to go to one that came in just recently. Hello, good morning. My son is currently attending a special day classroom. The teacher reports that he doesn't want to, and the verb is missing there, doesn't want to something, the teachers, the aides, or the peers.
Listen to it, probably.
Oh, probably. He's not doing classwork. I suggested to use reinforcements like food or something he likes in the classroom, but she says he doesn't like anything in the classroom. I told her that is behavior that he is avoiding. She said she doesn't think it's a behavior problem because he's not hitting anybody or tantruming in the classroom. At home, he talks to the family, does his homework. We are in the process of getting ABA services through your Arcadia Center.
Oh, good.
We have the intake appointment on April 18th. I was wondering if they could see him at school as part of the assessment.
Yes.
We also have our annual IEP at the end of this month, and I don't know how to approach the school. What do I do? And thank you so much for your help, and God bless you for all that you do.
Thank you very much. And God bless you too. And thank you for that. You will definitely, if you, at your intake appointment, which is coming up, tell the supervisor that you would like to make sure an evaluation is also done at the school. Tell them all these issues, and yes, then we will arrange an observation to see what's going on. If you're insurance funded, usually insurance will not cover anything at school, but we will roll this initial assessment into the intake, so that basically it's an observation of different communities, different environments where your child isn't doing well. So we'll be able to see what's going on at school. And it's very important. If the child's doing very, very well at home and not so well at school, I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to figure out something that's going on, and then we'll have to change the environment. Having said that, you will still need to call an IEP. So in preparation for that, what I would suggest is that you have your intake on the 18th. I don't know how soon after that we'll be able to get you started, but potentially we'll be able to get a school meeting, an IEP, before the end of the school year, which means it'll have to happen in May or very early June.
It sounds like her IEP is already scheduled for the end of April.
End of April.
But you could ask for an extension.
Yes.
Or you can start the IEP but not sign it.
Yes. You'll probably, when we get involved with things like that, and here's what will happen. If you have insurance funding, it won't pay for our staff to go to the IEP with you. So you might have to independently pay for a supervisor to go to the IEP with you. But then once we recommend funding and get funding from your school district, from that point forward, your supervisor will be going to your IEPs, will be writing all the goals, will be doing all the things you need necessary for your school, for your IEPs and for functioning at the school. Be very clear, insurance companies are very strict about us not providing any services in the school setting unless we're funded by the schools, because they consider that to be educational and not medical necessity, which is I disagree with completely. But regardless, the point is that we would need to get involved with your school. Now, I don't know what district you're in. Each district has other types of issues as well, but we are contracted with all the districts in California, many districts across the country. And so we would probably be able to get some funding from your school. This is an issue that occurs in school. The school needs to also get involved and participate with us.
Yeah.
No, so they're in Arcadia. So they're going to the Arcadia office. So it could potentially be LA Unified.
Or Pasadena Unified.
Or Pasadena Unified. And both of those we've worked with. I mean, we have the largest contract with LA UST. So.
And, you know, it's concerning that whoever the person is who's saying, I don't think it's behavior, but that's fixable.
Yeah.
That's very fixable.
And sometimes it's like people will say stuff like that, and it's not even worth the time to teach them differently. We just intervene. We get involved. Any kind, just blocking people out, not listening, not paying attention is a challenging behavior. And obviously, something's up. Your child's either not getting reinforced adequately, or they have learned that they can space out during the day in school, or they're shy, they're embarrassed, maybe they're being bullied. I don't know, but something's up, because this is a very big contrast in behavior. And so your supervisor will get involved with this.
Yeah. We've only got 1 minute left, but I'd love to see if we can address this. Can you recommend activities or direct me to age-appropriate resources for my 20-year-old daughter with limited language and motor ability? She does seem to get offended with baby toys, but she needs stimulation and things to do, especially during school vacations. ESY is limited to 4 weeks in our district, and she tends to regress behaviorally at home. Finding things to keep her engaged is a very big challenge.
Yeah.
20 years old.
I know. So I don't know her functioning skills, but what I would really suggest is that you test out several different things. Like, some of our kids are fantastic at painting. I would really get her a bunch of paints and brushes and see what she can, let her go to town and see if that's something she gets into. I would try to teach her knitting. Knitting is something that a lot of our kids love and get engaged in. I would buy her a small synthesizer and see if she's musical or likes to play around with the music. So there's a lot of different things that you might want to, like beads. Get her a bunch of beads and see if she can string them, and teach her how to string so she can make jewelry. There's a lot of things like this, and that's just right off the top of my head, but there's a lot of activities that not only could she enjoy, but she could actually produce a business from them.
Absolutely.
So all of these are like important things to try.
My mother made me hook rugs.
Yeah, there you go.
It's- and
I
it's a
used to
very-
actually love that.
Right? And it's a very simple thing once you learn how to do it. It's a repetitive thing, but you
Absolutely.
hook rugs.
Or get her a loom, you know, like for
Yes,
and
to weave.
weave. And with the weaving process, many of our kids really enjoy, and they can
Yes,
actually.
it's heavy work, which can be
It's
very good.
fantastic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course there's the whole world of online. If she is able
Oh
to,
my gosh.
if she is able to get on a computer and use a mouse.
Yeah.
You say limited language and motor ability. I don't know if she can type but there's a whole world, whether it's games or socially, there's a whole world there.
You know, the best place I think for you is to go to Michael's and walk around, and each month maybe try 5 new things. I mean, they have like things like she could make soap, she could make candles, she could.
Even
There's
have
like a million
classes.
things, right? And if you learn them, you can also teach them to her yourself. But find her an activity. You absolutely have it right that it's important for her to engage in something, and find her an activity, and she'll become productive, and she'll enjoy it, and you can sell the products, and she'll be earning an income for herself. It'll be very
Absolutely.
nice.
A little Etsy shop.
Exactly.
There we go.